The Book of Revelation, with its vivid imagery and profound mysteries, has captivated and unsettled readers for centuries. Within its pages, the seven trumpets resound like echoes from a future yet to unfold, each one carrying powerful messages and prophecies of transformation. These are not just mere musical instruments, but symbols rich with deep and hidden meanings, whose understanding can alter our perception of the biblical narrative and our role within it. Picture, for a moment, the sound of a trumpet reverberating across the earth, with each note imbued with the weight of destiny. What do these trumpets herald? What significance do they hold in biblical teachings and in the broader history of the Bible? That's what we're about to explore as we begin to unravel the hidden secrets of these powerful prophetic voices. As the first trumpet sounds, the sky transforms into a battlefield. Fire and blood intermingle, descending upon the earth like a destructive storm. This apocalyptic vision, as described by John, strikes as a somber warning, a precursor of calamities. For generations, scholars of biblical stories have debated the true meaning behind this scene. Could it be a portrayal of natural disasters, such as volcanic eruptions or wildfires, which devastate entire regions? Or does it point to something even more profound, connected to the spiritual consequences of a humanity that has distanced itself from biblical teachings? Regardless of interpretation, what remains undeniable is the magnitude and inevitability of this vision, echoing through both history and the fears of the present. As flames devour the earth, consuming a third of the trees and all green grass, the modern mind cannot help but draw parallels to the catastrophic fires that have ravaged the planet in recent years. Could these natural events serve as a reminder of the warnings embedded in the Bible's narrative? Perhaps this trumpet is calling us to acknowledge the consequences of ignoring the signs around us, urging us to reflect on how far we've strayed from nature and, by extension, from the teachings that the Bible offers as our guide. Understanding this trumpet is also understanding fire as a symbol of purification and judgment. In several biblical stories, fire not only destroys, but also renews. This leads us to ponder, is the apocalypse suggesting that before a new era of peace can emerge, it will be necessary to go through a period of judgment and purification? Just as gold is refined in fire, humanity may need to face its own internal flames, cleansing itself of the impurities that distance it from its true spiritual purpose. But if the first trumpet already brings with it so much destruction and rebirth, what could the next one reveal to us? If fire and blood are just the beginning, what else is in store for those who pay attention to the prophetic signs? At the sound of the second trumpet, a scene of absolute chaos emerges on the horizon. A large burning pile is thrown into the sea, and the impact is devastating. A third of the seas turn to blood, and a third of the sea creatures die, while the ships that sail the waters are destroyed. This vision of destruction at sea is not just an image of physical calamity, but a profound metaphor for the collapse of everything we consider stable and secure. In biblical teachings, the sea often symbolizes nations and peoples, in constant movement and, sometimes, in turmoil. What this trumpet alerts us to is how vulnerable we are, both on the spiritual and material planes, in the face of the greater forces that shape the destiny of humanity. In modern times, it is almost impossible not to associate this apocalyptic vision with events such as tsunamis, oil spills, and ecological disasters that have devastated our oceans. The sea, once a source of life and sustenance, becomes a scene of death and desolation. This begs the question, are we somehow repeating the mistakes that biblical stories warn us to avoid? The prophecy of the second trumpet may be a reflection of our own neglect of the planet, an urgent call to reevaluate our relationship with divine creation and the natural resources entrusted to us. The large burning mountain, which plunges into the sea, can be interpreted as a symbol of the great world powers, whose actions and decisions directly impact global stability. Just as nations influence the course of history, the burning mountain irrevocably alters the balance of the seas. It is a reminder that power, when misused, can have devastating consequences, not only for those responsible, but for all of humanity. The story of the Bible is full of warnings against arrogance and the destruction that results from it, and this trumpet seems to reinforce that message. If the sea, a symbol of immensity and mystery, can so easily be turned into a theater of destruction, what else might the next trumpet reveal about the world as we know it? What else is at stake when the balance of creation is disrupted? When the third trumpet sounds, the sky is torn apart by a burning star, falling like a flaming torch over the rivers and springs of water. This star, called wormwood, turns the waters into bitterness, and many who drink these waters die. The sight of a star that poisons the sources of life is a stark warning about the fragility of our own sources of sustenance. In biblical teachings, water often symbolizes life and purification, but here it becomes an instrument of death. The name absinthe, which means bitterness, suggests that what once sustained life now becomes a source of destruction, a bitter reflection of humanity's choices. In the modern context, this view can be associated with the environmental crises we face, such as river pollution and contamination of drinking water sources. It is as if the story of the Bible is warning us of the inevitable consequences of treating the resources given to us carelessly. The poisoning of the waters can be seen as a metaphor for the poisoning of the human spirit, when we move away from biblical teachings and the principles of respect and care for creation. The bitterness of wormwood is felt not only physically, but also spiritually, as a reflection of the bitterness that grows in the hearts of those who stray from the divine path. The fall of the burning star is a powerful symbol of the sudden and unexpected destruction that can overwhelm even the purest and most necessary things for life. Imagine, for a moment, the purity of water, something we have always taken for granted, being irreversibly corrupted. Just like this bitter star, there are times in our lives when something that should nourish us becomes a source of pain. It could be a relationship, a belief, or even a choice we made without considering the consequences. The story of the Bible, with its timeless lessons, teaches us to reflect on these choices and to always seek the path that keeps us in harmony with divine teachings. When the fourth trumpet sounds, the sky darkens terrifyingly. A third of the sun, moon, and stars are hit, plunging the world into partial and desperate darkness. This darkness is not only physical, but also symbolic, representing the loss of spiritual guidance and clarity. In biblical teachings, light has always been a symbol of truth and revelation, and the lack of it suggests a departure from divine understanding and grace. The story of the Bible repeatedly warns us about the dangers of walking in darkness, and this trumpet serves as a powerful reminder that without divine light, the world becomes a place of confusion and fear. This loss of light can be compared to the feeling of despair that many experience in times of great uncertainty. In our lives, we have all experienced moments when the path ahead seems clouded, where the future is uncertain and hope seems to dissipate like daylight at dusk. This apocalyptic phenomenon invites us to reflect on the moments in which we allow the shadows of fear and doubt to take over our hearts, moving us away from the biblical teachings that offer us direction and purpose. The history of the Bible is full of passages that urge us to seek the light, even in the darkest times. The partial darkness covering the earth can also be seen as a warning about the consequences of spiritual forgetfulness. Just as light is necessary for life, understanding and wisdom are essential for the soul. When we allow parts of our lives to remain in the shadows, whether through ignorance, denial, or fear, we lose a crucial part of our connection to the divine. It is in this context that the fourth trumpet sounds an urgent call for us to seek enlightenment before the darkness becomes complete and irreversible. If this trumpet brings with it the loss of light and the beginning of despair, what could emerge from the still gathering shadows? How can we prepare for the challenges that come when darkness threatens to swallow everything we know and love? When the fifth trumpet sounds, the vision becomes even darker. A star falls from the sky, opening the abyss, and from there emerges a cloud of smoke so thick that it darkens the sun and the air. From this darkness, an army of strange creatures emerges, described as grasshoppers, but which have a terrifying appearance, with tails like scorpions and the power to torment humanity. This fallen star is often interpreted as a fallen angel or a figure that symbolizes the fall of what was once glorious. In biblical teachings, the fall has always been a central theme, representing separation from the divine and entry into chaos. Here, this fall not only brings physical destruction, but also a profound psychological storm. These locusts rising from the abyss are unlike any creature we know. They do not destroy vegetation, but people, leaving them in agony for 5 months without allowing them to find relief in death. This leads us to consider the internal storms we carry, those that, like locusts, do not destroy the outside, but consume the soul within. The story of the Bible often warns us about the dangers of turning away from teachings that can protect our minds and hearts. The pains we suffer internally are often worse than the physical ones, and this trumpet reminds us that, without spiritual protection, we are vulnerable to these invisible plagues that devastate our spirit. The image of the bottomless pit being opened is one of the most powerful and disturbing in biblical history. It is as if, for a moment, all the forces of evil were released to ravage the earth. But what is even more terrifying is the feeling of helplessness that this vision provokes. Imagine a scenario where everything we know as safe and sacred is destroyed by forces we cannot control or fully understand. This trumpet, therefore, is not just a warning of what may come, but a call to prepare ourselves spiritually and emotionally for the battles we will face, both in the external world and in our hearts. If the bottomless pit once revealed such profound horrors, what else could be hidden in the depths of prophecy? What still waits to be released? And how can we find strength and hope in the face of such challenges? At the sounding of the sixth trumpet, the world witnesses the release of 4 angels who were trapped along the great river Euphrates. With his release, a colossal army of 200 million knights is unleashed, bringing death and destruction to a third of humanity. The horsemen, with lions' heads and serpents' tails, release fire, smoke and sulfur, consuming everything in their path. This terrifying vision can be seen as a representation of the overwhelming power that can be released when previously contained forces are unleashed. In biblical teachings, angels often serve as messengers or executors of divine will, but here they bring a message of relentless judgment. This deadly army can be interpreted in many ways, reflecting both physical and spiritual threats. In modern times, we can associate them with devastating wars that claim lives on a large scale, with weapons of mass destruction that turn the battlefield into hell on earth. The history of the Bible, throughout its pages, has always warned about the dangers of war and conflict, not only as physical destruction, but as a degradation of the human spirit. This trumpet sounds an urgent warning that the path of violence can only lead to ruin, reminding us of the dire consequences of choosing hate over love, destruction over construction. The 4 freed angels can also symbolize cosmic forces that, once unleashed, are impossible to contain. Just as the Euphrates River plays a crucial role in biblical history as a natural and spiritual boundary, these angels can represent the breaking down of barriers that kept certain calamities at bay. The sight of such a vast and destructive army reminds us that in a world where the forces of evil are unleashed, few will be safe. But at the same time, it offers us an opportunity to reflect on the barriers we still have in our lives, those that protect us from total chaos, and how we can strengthen them based on biblical teachings. If the 6th trumpet has already brought such a devastating army, what remains for the 7th? What might come after these overwhelming forces pass? And what will it mean for the destiny of humanity? After the blast of the 6th trumpet and before the 7th can sound, there is an enigmatic pause. A great angel, wrapped in a cloud and with a rainbow over his head, descends from the heavens, holding a small open book in his hand. He places one foot on the sea and one on the land, crying out with a voice as powerful as a lion's roar. This moment of pause, of suspension in the apocalyptic flow, carries with it a profound mystery. In biblical teachings, these interruptions often precede major revelations or changes. The little book, offered to John to be devoured, is bitter to the stomach but sweet to the mouth, a symbol of the difficult truths that often carry both pain and hope. This pause between the trumpets is also an invitation to reflection, a time to consider what has been revealed so far and what is yet to come. The 2 witnesses who emerge in this interval are prophetic figures, clothed with power to proclaim the word of God, but who also face resistance and death. They represent the persistence of faith in the midst of persecution, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, biblical teachings continue to be a light in the midst of darkness. The story of the Bible teaches us that there is always a battle between good and evil, and this pause prepares us for the intensification of this battle, reminding us that the final judgment is approaching. The role of these witnesses is crucial, as their deaths and subsequent resurrection are a prelude to the final sound of the 7th trumpet. They serve as a reminder that even when all seems lost, the biblical story shows us that there is always a redemption, a turnaround that defies human expectations. The bitterness in the little book can symbolize the painful truths we must face, while the sweetness in the mouth reflects the hope and promise of something better to come. This moment between the trumpets is a call to all of us to consider our own spiritual journey and how we are preparing for what is to come. When the 7th trumpet finally sounds, the sky is filled with voices proclaiming, "The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he will reign forever and ever." This final sound does not bring destruction, but the consummation of a mystery that has been hidden since the beginning of time. The 7th trumpet marks the moment when everything that was prophesied begins to come true, and the kingdom of God is fully and definitively established. In biblical teachings, this is the culmination of the story of the Bible, where all promises are fulfilled and final redemption is realized. It is the sound that announces the end of the old world and the birth of a new era. This moment of triumph is a powerful reminder that despite all the calamities and tribulations described above, divine justice prevails. The story of the Bible is full of moments when darkness seems to dominate, but there is always a return to light. The seventh trumpet is the sound of victory, not just for God, but for all those who have remained faithful to biblical teachings, even in the face of the greatest adversity. This is the moment when faith is rewarded, and the divine plan, which seemed so distant and incomprehensible, finally reveals itself in all its glory. The destiny of humanity, then, is not one of total destruction, but of profound transformation. The story of the Bible shows us that the end is, in fact, a new beginning. With the seventh trumpet, the nations rage, but God's wrath is manifested in justice, rewarding the righteous and bringing judgment on the wicked. This is the sound that puts an end to all injustices, that rebalances the scales of morality and restores divine order. It is the moment when all doubts are dispelled and the truth, which was once bitter, becomes a sweet reality. But if the mystery has been accomplished and the kingdom has been established, what next? The story of the Bible leaves us with the certainty that even after the final sound of the trumpet, the role of humanity continues, now under the new divine order. Now that you have unlocked the mystery of the seven trumpets of Revelation, what will you do with this knowledge? Biblical stories are not just accounts of the past, but guides for the present and warnings for the future. How are you preparing for the challenges that lie ahead? Have you already started applying biblical teachings in your daily life? This is the time to reflect on the choices we make, to question whether we are truly aligned with the principles we have been given, or whether we are missing important signs. If you haven't made this decision yet, it's not too late. And remember, the spiritual journey is ongoing. There is always more to learn and more to understand. If you're interested in having a Bible like the one we use in our studies, check out the link in the first pinned comment. If you enjoy our content and can support our channel, consider buying us a coffee through Buy Me a Coffee. Additionally, if you can purchase a crucifix, we also have a link in the first pinned comment. We greatly appreciate your support. God bless, and see you in the next video.